Hey family, welcome to We All Need Each Other, the podcast from Transformation Ministry. Let me tell you some facts. Each one of us has unique ways of thinking, gifts, talents, and experiences. Each one of us was made in the image of God. Although those things are very real and very true, it is also true that we reflect the image of God very differently. When we come together with our differences and our uniqueness, we can help each other. We can help each other understand different perspectives and broaden our own perspectives. We can help each other grow and learn and understand the beauty of God and also the complexity of this world. That's why we wanted to bring you this podcast. In this podcast, we're going to get real. We're going to bring in guests that talk about things like faith, race, politics, relationships, ministry, and justice. With all that being said, I just want to say thank you for being here. And thank you for joining us on We All Need Each Other.
Hey, Aaron, thanks for joining me, man. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad to introduce you to the people who watch and listen to the show. For those of you who don't know who Aaron is, Aaron's going to be joining us as the new co-host. And I don't know if he'll be on every episode. He might be the only one on some episodes. I might not be on some episodes. But I'm super excited. Aaron is someone who I appreciate very much because of his thoughtfulness, his communication skills, his openness to new ideas. And so, I'm really excited. Aaron, how about you just give us a little bit tell us who you are, what you do, and maybe some things that you're really interested in right now in your life.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. Well, and first off, I am so excited to be here and to be a part of this. One thing about me as intros, I've grown up in this area. I really value, the South Bend, Michiana area. And so have seen the work that Transformation Ministries has been doing for a while. And I'm just, such a big fan and supporter of that. And so, to be a part of this is very exciting for me. So, very grateful for that. My name's Aaron Charles. I'm 28. Like I said, I've lived here in this area my whole life, grew up in South Bend. Went to a very small private high school, which will come up later in the discussion for kind of some of my background and how that's formed my thinking. But we always used to joke that it was basically like being homeschooled because I had 11 people in my graduating class as a senior. So it was pretty small. But I've lived in this area my whole life. I love this area. I think it's just a fascinating place. Lots of different groups of people, lots of different, the history of this community is fascinating to me. So I love South Bend in Mishawaka. I am married to my wife, Sarah. In September will be 6 years that we've been married. And we met at Bethel College, now Bethel University, but it was Bethel College when we went there. And that's where Sarah works now. Actually, she just started a job there. So again, just love the community there. And that's been a really formative part of my life. As far as what I do, so I graduated from Bethel with a communications degree and kind of went into the marketing advertising agency space. And so I've been there for 6 years at two local agencies. So I'm now at Pathfinders Advertising in Mishawaka. And I love what I do. I get to help businesses just think through the strategies and solving problems that they're facing. And no day is the same. There's always new problems to solve. So that's always fascinating. And I guess another quick thing about me is an intro is that I'm asking about things I'm interested in right now. I try to be someone who's easily fascinated, easily interested in things. So I have a lot of different stuff that most people know about me that I'm a big baseball fan. I love the Cubs. You can kind of see behind me my Cubs wall there. So a big Cubs fan. Actually, last year, Sarah and I and my dad, we went in on Cubs season tickets together. So it was not the best year to start having Cubs season tickets because we didn't go to a game, but hopefully that will change this summer. But yeah, big movie buff, and probably I would say the biggest. I am a writer at heart. I love to write, and so I had my writing on movies published by a couple different online outlets, and that's been kind of a fun thing for me to dive into, just art and how people think creatively. That fascinates me. And then over the last year, I have tried to get into gardening. So that's the new thing that I'm not very good at yet, but I'm trying my hand at it. My father-in-law came down. My in-laws live in Kalamazoo area, and they came down a couple weeks ago, and he helped me build a raised garden bed. So that's been the new thing. We're trying our hand at some vegetable gardening. So we'll see how that goes.
What vegetables are you growing this year?
So we just put in some lettuce and some kale, garlic, some of the cold, weather veggies that you can grow, carrots, and then I've got some like peppers, tomatoes, a few different things that we'll plant later on. But actually, earlier podcast guest Ryan Fleming has been helping me. I love following his Instagram. He is great with gardening, so I've been pulling some tips from him.
So the cool thing about this is, yeah, you're going to be on the podcast more going forward, but you've already been contributing. People may not know this, or they might know this, but through writing and through helping me think through questions and think through ideas about guests and topics, you've already made a huge contribution. And so the podcast is just getting started, but it wouldn't be where it is without you having contributed already. So I'm really appreciative of that. I want to share a little bit of a story. So I first met you playing basketball.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the first time we actually met.
Yep.
So we had this group of guys that would get together one morning a week. We called it mediocre morning basketball because it was mediocre at best.
Oh yeah, yeah. The name is very true.
Yeah, none of us were ever great basketball players, and most of us are older and past our prime now. So you can imagine the level of play. But we did have some young kids who kept us running up and down the court. And one thing about you, Aaron, is you're probably a few inches shorter than me. And I have
a few inches shorter. Yeah.
I'm not super tall, but I'm tall enough that in most pickup games, I qualify as a big guy. And one thing that I tend to do as I get older is to look for, take advantage of any edge that I might have. So normally, if I get matched up with a smaller guy, I'm going to take him down low and try to use my size and some moves to try to get some easy shots. And I thought that I could do that with you because you're shorter than me, but you're the guy ended up being the one that I at least wanted to take down low because you got so physical with me, and you would bump and you would push and you would do everything you could to stop me from getting those easy shots off. And I always respected that a great deal because you just went hard, even though it was just mediocre morning basketball. You went hard, but I wonder, does that say something about your personality in general, the way you approach that situation?
Well, it might. I don't know. What it says is I had an older brother who would have me play with, all his friends when I was, 3 years younger. And so I always just had to learn to throw my weight around a little bit. And my older brother, Evan, is one of the best 3-point shooters I've ever played with. I mean, he was just incredible. And so, yeah, whenever we would play one-on-one, like my only hope would just to be very physical with him. So that's where it comes from, is having an older brother. But yeah, I think I like I said, I try to be easily fascinated by a lot of different things, and sports is absolutely one of those. I think there are always great lessons to learn from sports, and basketball is one of my first loves. I think you grew up in Indiana, like you better love basketball. That's just like built into, I don't know, the culture of the state here. You grew up in Indiana, that's just part of it. And yeah, I think there are a lot of good lessons to learn about just, playing hard at any time. I think there's a verse in the Bible that I think about sometimes, of where it talks about like the work you do not being to men but to God, right? And I don't know, I think I try to live that in small ways of just like, anything I'm doing, I want to do it as good as I can. And that may not be, I might fail. I might not do as good as someone else, but if I'm putting in my best effort, that's all I can hold myself to. So yeah, I think there's part of that, but more than anything, I think it goes back to what my older brother tried to instill in me, which I think it's still there. He did a pretty good job with it.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but if you're loving this episode and you want to access any past episodes or show notes or more content, visit our website, www.transformation58.com/podcast. Okay, get back to the show.
So let's go back a few months. I don't remember when it was that I first reached out to you about joining the podcast. But I just, for whatever reason, it wasn't something I had to think about a lot. It was just the idea came in my head, and I thought that would be so cool if Aaron could be part of this. And so when I reached out to you, what were some of the reasons that you said yes to being a part of the podcast?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first reason, kind of another background thing, and Dan, one of the reasons that there's a lot of reasons I respect you, and we've talked about some of them already. I just the work you're doing in community building, I respect a ton. But you also started a book club of sorts, a discussion group over the summer, and kind of went out on a limb and took a chance on kind of pulling together people from a lot of different backgrounds. And I had the opportunity to be part of that group, and it was so formative. Just seeing people that think differently, people that come from different backgrounds, people that have different experiences, talking about the book we read was Disunity in Christ by Christina Cleveland, which is an incredible book. I learned a lot from that. But really what I learned even more from was, the experience of talking through some of these, difficult topics of like racism, of church backgrounds, of, how we live out our faith in, multicultural, situations. Like, the way people think on those topics is sometimes different depending on what background you come from. And so the conversations we had in that group were amazing and really formative. And so, when you came to me with this opportunity, which to me, that's really the heart of this podcast too, right? Is listening to people that come from different backgrounds, of understanding that we really do all need each other. We need that community. We need that connection. And if we have communities that are just with, a homogenous group of people that all think the same, like, growth doesn't happen then. You're just kind of, in your silo, and you're not being challenged. So that group really was very formative for me. And so then when you came to me with this opportunity, I was very excited about it. I will say at first, one of the things, and I guess we can talk more about this too, but, like I said, my background, I grew up in this area, but came from, I would say, a more conservative background. The school I went to, like I said, was very small, very conservative, like theologically and culturally. I believe I could count on one hand for sure the amount of non-white students we had, and I was there from first grade until I graduated high school. So, 12 years. So a very homogenous, experience, very white experience. And so, there are blind spots that come from that, right? As you grow up and just, live in that very conservative space. So part of what I'm trying to do now is continue to love people that are still in that space, but also learn, how can I bring in more perspectives? How can I learn and grow? And I saw, this podcast as being an opportunity to do that. But I also felt a little bit like, because I am going through that journey, and because I grew up in that space, I really haven't done the community building work that you guys at Transformation have been doing, and have, been on the ground and really, committed to that work for a long time. And so part of me was like, I don't know if I want to be like a face, a co-host, and like be out in front. I'd rather like be in the background a little bit. And you were really helpful with that, of just saying, like, that's fine, and I understand what you're saying, but like, this is an opportunity, and I think you would have some good things to say. And yeah, so I guess I see myself as someone who's sort of in the middle, right, in the process of really trying to learn and grow and be involved in community, well, maybe more than I have in the past. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I think that brings up one of the things about you that that is necessary for a podcast like this, and for conversations like we're going to engage in, is humility, is not thinking not thinking that you've got it all figured out, not thinking that your ideas are the absolute right ideas, and just understanding that every situation is a chance to learn. I think that's another admirable thing about you, which makes you a good fit for the show. So obviously you believe in the heart behind the show. We all need each other. But what obstacles have you come across as you've encountered and spent time with people who kind of see the world differently than you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there with humility. I think all of us need to come to these conversations and realize that a lot of the times we're our own obstacle in that, right? I mean, that's what I've experienced, is sometimes it might be, it might honestly be an ignorance, something that I'm not aware of about myself, or the ways that my thinking has been formed. Or it might just be, it isn't out of ignorance. It's out of me putting my foot down and yeah, saying, this is what I believe, and it's my way or the highway. Like, I do still have that thinking sometimes, and I need to work at that. So yeah, I think we can be our own obstacles at times. But for me, I do think one of the biggest obstacles has been, I don't want to say, because it would be easy for me to kind of make it sound like I'm ashamed is not the right word, but looking back at the way I grew up and kind of wrestling with it in a negative way. I love my family upbringing, for sure, and my parents, I think, really were the ones who instilled in me that notion of, some of the things I would get taught at school. They would say, well, we think differently on that, and that's okay. And so they were the ones that really instilled in me this idea of learn things, like take things in, but always sort of look at it with an objective eye, and like, yeah, try to think through it and not just take it at face value. And I appreciate that. But yeah, there's a lot of, I think, baggage that as white Americans, growing up in, rural areas like that, there's a cultural, issue there. I think when we grow up and don't have all these inputs from other communities. And so that's certainly been an obstacle that I've had to overcome. And again, I feel like I'm in the middle of that process. I'm still overcoming it, but I've had a lot of good voices in my life, and you have absolutely been one of those, of helping me understand, how to take those next steps.
As we move forward, and as we start to record some episodes, what are your hopes for the podcast? Like, what do you, not like big dreams necessarily, but just what do you hope to accomplish through the podcast?
Well, one, I'm just excited for the conversations we're going to have. I mean, even in, the podcast that you've already done, there's just been some fascinating people that you've had the chance to talk to. And so I'm excited to hear from people who are already, doing this work and learning from them and hearing about their experiences. And then my hope is that this sparks more conversation, right? That it's a picture of what we're trying to do, of building community in our larger lives, right? But in this sense, I think this could be its own small community, and I would love to see that conversations are kind of, expanding out from this, and that people are talking about important topics and thinking through them and going out and building community in their own ways. I think that's the goal, and yeah, I'm excited to see what comes from it.
So we've got an episode scheduled, an interview scheduled. That the episode will come out on April 15th. Do you want to say anything about that one?
Well, I cannot wait for this because, for one, again, like I said, I've been sort of, aware of Bethel. I knew a lot of people that were involved in ISI, and like I've known of Transformation Ministries. So the work that Corey and Allison have been doing, like I've been, and in fact, I even remember when I was younger watching Corey play at Bethel. So yeah, I've been aware of Corey for a while and really, really grateful for the work he's doing. So I'm excited to get to talk to him. And then Jonathan Brooks is someone that I have admired from afar, going on 2 years now, since I first got engaged with his writing, his website, his book Church Forsaken, I think is one that anybody who's interested in this notion of community building and just in discussions of faith, I mean, it's one of the best books I've read. So I've emailed back and forth with Jonathan, but I'm excited to meet him virtually, I guess, so yeah, I think that's going to be a fantastic conversation, just again, about this idea of building communities and how we do that, and how we do that when, maybe there are differing notions, people that come from different backgrounds, how we pull people together. I try to, in my own life, be someone who connects other people. And that work gets more difficult when, I feel like you're being pulled in two different directions of people that are like completely at odds in their thinking, or that just come from different backgrounds. That work of connecting people and building community becomes tougher. So yeah, I'm just excited to hear from people who are, again, doing that work in their own lives and have been very successful at it. And I think it's going to be a great conversation.
Aaron, I just want to say thank you again for being with us. Thank you for joining the show, for being a contributor in huge ways. And thank you for living a life that just really exemplifies what this podcast is all about.
Well, I appreciate that so much. And I mean, my thanks goes to you, man. I really just appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it. And I'm excited to see where this goes, because we all need each other, right?
I agree. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Bye.